European Union Economic and Monetary Commissioner Olli Rehn. A month ago you said June could be the beginning of the end of the debt crisis. It's now July 1st. Did June live up to your expectations?
Let's say I meant the time before the summer break. And it's true that some of the decisions should have been taken in June, but it is still sufficient that we take these decisions in July. I'm referring to the next, the fifth tranche of the Greek loan package, and I'm referring to the bank stress tests, which will be soon concluded. And we have already taken the decision on the finalization of the European stabilization mechanism and reinforcement of the European financial stability facility. So we are moving on all fronts, but we still have to complete many things, and I trust we will be able to do so before the summer recess.
When is your revised estimate for the date of the beginning of the end?
Well, I think it's difficult to say any exact moments, but it's clear that this crisis will still affect the European economy for some time, but it's essential that we will take now the necessary decisions and thus facilitate us moving towards the end game, so that we can protect the economic recovery. We can ensure that sustainable growth and improving employment can continue in the European economy.
Euro area finance ministers met on Sunday. Will they approve payout of the next installment of Greece's aid?
Yes, I'm confident that we have now a sufficient consensus emerging, so that we can take the decision during the weekend on the fifth tranche of the Greek loan package, following the confidence vote or following the parliamentary vote in the Greek parliament on the revised memorandum and on the economic reform program of Greece.
Okay. What about the new 3-year package for Greece, which is the next step? How much progress will the finance ministers make this weekend, do you think?
We are discussing this, we are working on this, and now as we speak on Friday, it's soon Friday noon. In fact, our deputies are still meeting in the Eurogroup working group in Brussels, and the work is going on, and it will move forward over the weekend, and I trust will be concluded in the coming weeks. We still have some work to do, but the parameters of the new program and its conditions, like private sector involvement, are well shaping up.
What about the IMFs? Does the IMF have the guarantees that it needs to come up with its share of the current aid proposal?
Of course, the IMF will speak for itself, but my reading is that we have now an agreement emerging also with the IMF, so that the IMF can do its part, can support the fifth tranche and do its part in order to disburse it.
We're hearing that the new package will bring the total to 190 to 195 billion euros. In other words, 80 to 85 billion euros beyond the first Greek package. How much of this is expected to come from the Eurozone and the IMF, and how much from the private sector?
Don't trust all hearsay or speculation. There are plenty of numbers in the air and floating around. I would not want to go to any exact figures at this stage. It is still a work in progress. We know more or less the needs, the financing needs of Greece in the coming years. We know what we have committed in the first program. We are working on the private sector involvement, and Greece has decided on a very significant privatization program. All these will be put into a package in the course of the coming weeks, and of course there has to be very strong emphasis on growth and investment also, in order to help Greece to return to growth and achieve a primary structural surplus, so that Greece can stop living beyond its means and achieve both better employment, and more resilient public finances.
Would you be able to give a range for the package?
I do not want to give any figures at this stage because it really is a work in progress, and we can come back to that once the work is completed.
What about privatization? How sure can you be of Greece raising the 50 billion euros under fire sale conditions, having to sell really?
Why fire sale conditions? This is a plan of 5 years, and I'm sure that there is interest towards Greek assets which range from listed companies to other state-owned enterprises to real estate and other elements. Greece has committed itself to very clear targets and to a formidable program of privatization. We are supporting this, and I would say that the law on creating the privatization agency, where there will be also European representation in the board, is a very important element of achieving this objective, which will significantly reduce the debt burden of Greece because 50 billion euros represent over 20% of the Greek GDP.
We've seen dramatic scenes of anti-austerity rioting in Athens in the past few days. Can you really be confident that the legislation passed this past week will be implemented?
It is necessary, as always, that we effectively monitor the implementation of the Greek program. And the Greek government has a very strong commitment to ensure that this will happen. And also it has to happen because it is the condition for future payments based on the quarterly reviews every 3 months. So we continue to monitor the meeting of the conditions, and it is really in the Greek interest to ensure that the implementation will be done effectively.
Until the end of March, the EU and the IMF felt that Greece was on track. How did the situation deteriorate so suddenly?
In fact, in February, in our previous quarterly review, we said that the Greek economic reform program is broadly on track, but there are certain fiscal slippages and there are risks related to implementation of structural reforms and privatization program. So we warned about this in February. From last spring 2010 until around spring-winter, say February, March, the program was broadly on track. Then there was some distortion of attention to the discussion on debt restructuring and too little focus on program implementation. Now with the latest review, which has taken effectively 2 months, we are now bringing Greece back on track and ensuring that focus really is now on the implementation of the current program and negotiation on the new program, which will focus more on growth and investment.
How will you improve monitoring in the future?
We will, for instance, introduce reinforced technical assistance in some key areas because it is apparent, and the Greek authorities themselves recognize this and have requested this kind of reinforced technical assistance. For instance, in the areas of tax collection or privatization implementation. It's important that the Greek authorities receive competent support through technical assistance, which will be organized by the European Commission, but many of the experts will most likely come from the member states of the European Union or relevant international institutions. So we want to use the best expertise to help Greece to fight tax evasion, which is a matter of both social justice and public finances. And we want to help Greece to achieve its targets in privatization.
What about in the rest of Europe? What do you want to do to stop this from happening in other countries?
It is important that we realize that the contagion danger is not yet over. We have in fact contained the crisis now to the 3 more vulnerable countries, Greece, Ireland and Portugal. And for instance, Spain has so far, by and large, been able to decouple from this three crisis countries. It's important that each and every member state do their own part, carry their own responsibility on fiscal consolidation, structural reforms, completing the financial repair, and thus ensure that their economy is in a better shape, so that there is less reason for pressures from the financial markets. The latest example is Italy, which is embarking on a very significant program of fiscal consolidation.
Are the right people taking responsibility for this and paying the penalty?
That is a relevant question, certainly, but if you are a little bit more specific, I can try to respond to that.
From a European perspective, are the penalties being allocated in a way that is fair?
By penalties, you mean more specifically?
Are the payments being made by those who should make the payments?
Well, if you look at the countries now facing a serious crisis, there it is a matter of domestic democrats to decide on the allocation of contributions to overcome the burden of the past. For instance, in the Greek case, the nation has lived beyond its means. It does not mean that all the people have done so, but the nation as such, and I can well understand that there has been, unjustified inequalities inside Greece, but that is an issue which has to be settled in Greece by the Greek body politic and democratic decision makers. If you talk about how the burden of or the financial crisis and sovereign debt should be distributed, there is now ongoing discussion and also preparation of private sector involvement, which will lead to results, I'm sure, and thus the financial sector will carry a certain burden over all this crisis on a voluntary basis, based on the Vienna type initiative, which will not create a credit event.
Has Europe lived beyond its means?
Pardon me?
Has Europe lived beyond its means?
Europe is indebted, and the public debt is still rising. It has risen in the past 3 years from around 60% of gross domestic product to over 80%. In fact, in the past 2 years, we have lost in terms of fiscal consolidation the results of the past 2 decades. So in 2 years wiped out 20 years of progress in terms of fiscal consolidation. This means that this is going to be a major challenge, especially because we also need economic growth, and we need to look at investment, employment, and we are facing a dual challenge of enhancing sustainable growth and job creation on the one hand, and continuing fiscal consolidation on the other hand.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Any other message for our viewers and readers?
Thank you very much. I think it's important that we keep the big picture in mind, which is that the European economy is recovering. It's essential now that we protect the economic recovery, and we ensure that sustainable growth and improving employment can continue. And that's why it's important that we contain the financial bushfires in Greece or elsewhere before they turn into Europe-wide forest fires. And now it's important to stay on course and complete this work so that we can protect the economic recovery for the sake of welfare and jobs of ordinary people.